Good morning. Good morning. So hello everyone. I'm Samantha Titano and I'll be your MC today. And welcome to the Guam Homeless Coalition's third annual Housing and Homelessness Summit. We are so glad that you are all able to make it here today, as we have lots of great things on our agenda, including a wonderful panel that's going to be with MLSC, Micronesian Legal Services, and then some really great training opportunities in the afternoon. Before we kind of get started, here on our screen, we do have a little QR code if you would like to look at the agenda throughout the day. Also on the walls, we have some QR codes for the survey that we're asking everybody to complete at the end of the summit. Also, just a friendly reminder that there is no eating or drinking here in the class lecture hall. So if you do want to take a minute to step outside and get a drink or eat something, feel free to do that at any time. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio up for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's Friday, right? So I'm trying to always, every time I come in a crowd, I'm trying to figure out what is the body language telling me. Everybody is sitting in the back or on the side. Does that mean they want closer access to the restroom? Are there good snacks out there that I didn't yet try? Are people wanting just to get out of here? There's so many things that come in my mind when I speak to folks, but I just wanted to welcome all of you here today and to thank you for all of your individual efforts in really addressing what I feel is one of the most important issues that our island is facing, which is to make sure that our island home and our people are able to function in a way that I feel all of our predecessors or ancestors would have wanted. And what I mean is, Guam is known to be very hospitable. It is focused on family and generosity. And so we have to ask ourselves in this environment, when we kind of self examine and reflect on our island, is what we're seeing today consistent with that legacy that all of us have a duty to shoulder? That's how I see it. So maybe just for some interaction, how many of you folks here believe that the work that you are doing is really matters, is really important, is making a difference? How many of you feel the work you're doing is making a difference? Look around while your hands are up. This is a pretty good. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, hands down. How many of you feel that on this date in 2023, do you feel that things are about the same? Raise your hand if you think, in terms of your work, do you think things are about the same? How many of you think that things have gotten worse? How many of you think that things have gotten better? Interesting. So that's about for the getting worse, getting better. It kind of seems like a even number, but there's a tentative. I didn't see the things are getting better, things are getting worse. What does that mean? It means that we probably need to just take the time, which is honestly, which is today, to kind of reflect on the kind of work that we're doing, both as an individual and as an organization. I feel that for me, if you were to ask me, I feel that I always feel like we're behind. How do you feel things are going? I always say we're behind. And do you think that things are progressing? I'll say yes, but we still have much more to do. So for me, the way I look at it is I have a bigger expectation for myself than most people would have, maybe. That's because I have this responsibility currently in my life that I feel I'm always wanting to try and figure out what to do. So I want to kind of maybe explain some things that we've done to try and help push the needle on this, to try and push this agenda forward. Of course, first one was through executive order reestablishing the Interagency Council on Homelessness and Poverty Prevention. And then we created the Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Prevention. And although there has been a lot of consternation about what the future of the OHAP is because of the recent legislative agenda, I would say that we're still in a good, strong posture. That's because we have been able to identify outside resources to not only fund this program, but to try and add value and push it along. Um, I would say that one win in this last budget is the legislature finally some local money in for homelessness programs. Up until this point, as you know, as coalition members know, you have been resorting or depending on federal contributions and donor contributions from our own private people. So for the first time, the legislature comes into the fray, and they have appropriated $500,000 to the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services. Now, the way I see that happening is we've had some communications with Public Health and the Homeless Coalition to figure out how some of that is going to go to support some programming that is needed. But we take this as an opportunity to get public health into finally. Actually, they've already kind of been in it, as you know, because many of you are receiving funds from them, trying to get in a bit more stronger posture on addressing homelessness. What I would like to see is I would like to see us as a goal, and I would like to ask you to address this today. I would like to have a integrated case management program between the government and the private sector nonprofit providers. I think my observation is that fortunately, the coalition and its committees and the human connections, right, the collegial connections they have, are able to track people. But really, when we see folks, we probably need to, in the big picture, understand what services not only they are entitled to, but maybe what services can be increased. What is missing? How can we provide and as a group provide supports so that we could expand the kind of interventions that we have, make it more effective. That's one thing I would like you to discuss and figure out a good path for. Second thing I would say is that we have a large list of facilities coming down in the pike that are meant to really help ease and empower the programs and your constituents that they have. First one being, of course, and you've heard this. We have a apartment building coming online for transitional housing that, in many ways, should be able to decompress the shelters that may be backed up, especially if they have families. That really is a big priority. Second one we have is acquired property, and now it's in design build phase to go and have a drop-in center, bed for the night for folks that are experiencing a crisis, or to try and get in some intervention so people have some public health and behavioral health services when they come in to try and get help. Some of you know that just even taking a look at our constituents, you can figure out maybe somebody needs some immediate medical care that maybe they've not been tending to, a cut, a bruise, something that's going on. And then, of course, expanding day programming. I think a lot of folks know that on our community, we have individuals that need some help on the behavioral health side, individuals, disabilities that really want to try and spend some quality time doing things. And then, of course, we have folks that require some supports, especially in childcare. Recently, I had a meeting with a group of ladies in recovery. Some of them, their kids are in the public welfare system, and they've been taken from them. But the judges are confident that these ladies are making great progress in their rehabilitation. They are ready to reunite their children with them, except they don't have a stable housing situation. I'm sure a lot of you know cases like that, both men and women. And so providing these kinds of supports, I would say, is part of the posture that we're adopting. But not only that, what services can we wrap around the families and the individuals that we know that are needed? Those are things I feel that are things that are exciting once they get on. Of course, we're operating in a very complicated environment where construction is happening everywhere. Trying to get our wedge in to try and figure out what we need to do is something where I see some movement is on the Gura front. They have been also acquiring some apartment buildings so they can offer low income housing for people that are not getting the housing support from the Section 8 programs. Everybody knows that there's a backlog there. And with the recent news, with the housing escalating because of all of the additional activity going on, there is certainly a need to provide low income rental and low income housing support for people that are not able to receive the big subsidies that are going on. Recently, we were lucky that we were able to save a critical part of the infrastructure on homelessness. And unfortunately, because of the bankruptcy of the archdiocese, the food kitchen down in Hagåtña was also sold. Fortunately, Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority understood the need to maintain that facility and has purchased it. And their plan is to push that back out so that nonprofits or civil society or religious organizations can make sure that they continue that feeding program going on. The temporary food and nutrition program, the TFAP program that has been for many years at the Guam Department of Education, is now formally under the OHAP program. And the government of Guam has acquired facility to make sure that we can continue and improve the types of food and the methods of distribution through mayor's office and nonprofits so that we can have some food stability while we get people stabilized. We have also acquired the Chancery building and office building. And there, our government is going to be focused services on individuals with disabilities and those that need some supports from Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Program. The two agencies have launched a new partnership to figure out what kind of day programming do they have that can help service both operations, but also envisioning using a part of that facility for perhaps some day programming or residential options, understanding that we do have a growing adult population that is likely going to have some issues with us because their caregivers are passing away, getting old, they're aging, and they're not going to be able to be living independently. That's kind of the mission that the government also needs to push forward. I know that there's been some good progress on the action framework that you have developed, and we're building and working for the following years to keep meeting the annual metrics and achieving those marks that you as an organization have also set. And I hope that the number that we're seeing in our annual PIT count decreases as we bring more housing and shelter resources online. That is also going to happen by other sectors of the government providing options and addressing some of the other things that we see in the community where residents are in substandard housing conditions that are not safe from heavy weather events. And although there may never be a total elimination of homelessness, we really can try and put up as many supports as possible throughout the government and throughout the different channels so that we can provide people access to safety, access to health care, and especially give people access to casework management and assistance. This next few years is going to be both exciting and also going to be challenging, including in the national government, as we try to figure out what kind of supports and programs are going to be for this population. And I would say that I'm pretty certain that together not only as a coalition, but by building and relying on the strong partnership between the government, civil society, and individuals that have become change agents. Not only will be able to build our own resilience as an island, we're going to be able to navigate whatever comes our way, both here in the local government and on Guam and in the federal government. I'm really confident in that. So to take it back, I just wanted to say that I know just from the interaction that we have that there's a lot of committed people that understand that the work each of you individually is doing is so important for our entire collective. And there will be many opportunities, I feel, that will be able to try and increase and expand your effectiveness. And that is going to be rooted on the kind of relationships that you have with each other and those things that you're able to build in your organizations from contributions from yourselves individually. That really is going to be, I think, one of the best things that is going to continue in terms of the work we do. So we have a lot of work to do. Do you agree? Right? But let's do it the best way possible. And I'll just leave you this. We're coming up on the holiday season, and it is a spirit of giving. There's, of course, always a lot of camaraderie and friendship that happens. But I know that many of you during the holidays are spending time away from your families, or in addition to the quality time, you're going out there to provide supports to people that don't have that kind of family support as readily available. And for that, I just want to say you for sure are doing the Lord's work when you're doing all of that individually and collectively. So I just want to say thank you very much for your work. We look forward to continuing to work with you. This is a lot of work that we have in front of us, but it's very good work, right? And I heard somebody famous say that hard work is really great work, right? It's work of everything that is about who we are as people from Guam. Thank you very much, and Situs Masi. Sam?
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. Well, it is Homeless Awareness Month. So I wanted to kind of share a little bit of things before we move on to our next item. Hold on. Lieutenant Governor, did you forget your phone and your glasses? Okay, Asia's going to take care of that. So Homeless Awareness Month is in November, and we did start off that month with a proclamation. We will be having a legislative resolution that's presented today, but I did want to remind you all that we do have several things going on when it comes to Homelessness Awareness Month. And one of the biggest things, which Asia kicked off for us, is our Tag Your It GHC fundraiser. So I am tagging all of you right now to please make a donation to the Guam Homeless Coalition to continue to support the vital work that this organization does. I know that there are many people here who have requested financial assistance from the coalition to assist a client with some of the basic things such as IDs or perhaps getting new safety gear if they're starting a new job or utilities arrears. And really what this fundraiser is about is to ensure that we're able to continue that. So if you go to the Guam Homeless Coalition's website, which is guamhomelesscoalition.org, you'll find out more information. It is on PayPal, it's on our social media. So I do encourage you all to participate and make a donation. Once you make that donation, you're just gonna kind of tag, you can send it off to your friends, your family, to also kind of match you and make a donation as well. Okay. I'm getting whispers over here. Yeah. Okay. So next thing that we have, I would like to welcome up our chairperson, Mrs. Asia Ramos, and our vice chairperson, Mr. Robson Augustine, for an overview. Also, Jeannie Quinto, if you can meet me in the back.
Thank you very much, everyone. So we were going to do the legislative resolution, but Senator Kanata is on his way. So we will do our presentation. So give me 1 second, we'll pull it up.
Thank you, everybody, for being flexible. This is a good crowd today. As we are trying to stall for time, we're going to make some commitments to you, and that this is probably going to be the fastest presentation you're going to sit through for the day. And we want to share a 2024 year in review, which Rob is getting up, and all the great things that has been accomplished through the coalition. And when I say the coalition, it's not just the officers. It truly is the body of organizations, individuals, and champions who show up every day to help address individuals who are struggling through homelessness. So I see a lot of our members in here, and we thank you for being here today.
And if Sam didn't say it, thank you for all of our people that we see out there, a lot of the outreach that we've done. Thank you for being here. I know is thank you to Jihai. She mentioned trying to get more, she's with Micronesian Legal Services, but she wanted to really get people that were out there. So everyone that's on the streets right now and made the time to come out here, we appreciate it. We really need your feedback so we can make what we do better for you guys. So if you see any of us, you think about what can be done better for you. If there's something that we're not filling the gap on, feel free to just let any one of us know, and we'll try to bring that back and work within our organizations to become better for you guys. So with the 2024 year in view, start here. The first thing you want to start off with is pause for remembrance for two of our colleagues we lost in the past year. Peter Skro was a big supporter of the GHC. Every time we did the passport services, he'd come out and he'd bring his big load of McDonald's for everyone to have in the morning. So we lost him this past year. And then Terry was part of Catholic Social Service for a very long time. He headed Guma San Jose. These guys were both, working with the coalition for a very long time. You've probably seen both of them around. So we like to take a chance to remember them, and then also understand that a lot of you guys that are on the streets, you guys face a lot of struggle just getting through daily life. Talking to Curtis, he just let me know that a lot of people that we've seen pass away, and I was surprised. So one thing we did in the beginning of the month, since this was Homeless Awareness Month, was have the Archdiocese in their mass send a prayer out to all those that we've lost. So not only for these two, but for all of our brothers and sisters that you guys have seen that are part of your families, where you are staying. For everyone we've lost this year, let's take a moment to remember all of them. All right, so then moving forward, so who we are, the Guam Homeless Coalition. We're a group of government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and the private sector that come together for the purpose of responding to the needs of homeless youth, families, and single adults. We have 26 voting members, 10 non-voting members who are considered friends of the GHC, and that's made of 14 nonprofits. We have 2 lived experience individuals, which they're part of the coalition so that we get the feedback, from our constituents. 10 government and Guam agencies. I'm one of them, OHAP, and then 10 community stakeholders, who are the Friends of GHC. Our mission is to empower individuals and families who are homeless and or at risk of homelessness to achieve self-sufficiency by providing supports through awareness, education, and advocacy. We will achieve this through enhancing life skills, accessing the resources to obtain and sustain permanent housing, and providing the skills necessary to obtain employment. This year we had our officers. So every 2 years they change over. In May we had our election. So this year, from now till 2026, we'll have our officers here. We have Asia Ramos as our chair, myself. We have Jesse Libby over there, it's our secretary. We have Leilani Gitanag, our treasurer over there. Jackie is in the back. She's running our YouTube. There she is back there. And then Angela Pay, I think she's at work at DOE right now. So those are our officers. and we'll be serving through 2026. And so also with that, we have our GHC committees. Our data and trading, that is run by our Salvation Army partners over there, Frank and Justine. They're in charge of, say, the HMI system, anything that we need that has specific data from the systems that we use, they can pull that, and they are in charge of the trading. So letting everyone know that, what the systems we use to make sure we're using it correctly. We have our communication and fundraising. This started as a separate committees, but we ended up, I think, just grouping together naturally over the years. So now that's one committee, and we're in charge of, if you've seen, just trying to get more awareness out in the community for the homeless coalition. Being a little more active on social media this year, doing our newsletter, fundraising. We're trying to think about different ideas of how to fundraise for the coalition. And part of that was what Sam was talking about, is the Tag Your It fundraiser. We did the Panda Express one earlier this year. So stay tuned for more that we're going to be doing in 2025. The finance committee is headed by Sanctuary and Lonnie. They're making sure that the money that we use is going to the most appropriate places, and that we're using it wisely. And then housing committee, I had that. What we are doing with that is we're trying to get the feedback from landlords, renters, and those that are facing housing instability. Our biggest goal this year, and coming up next year, is to really contact more landlords and get them engaged with what we can do for them, so that maybe we can create something where we're the middleman, or the organizations that house each other, that they become the advocate for anyone that is able to get into housing, so that the landlord, a lot of their concern sometimes is having to deal with that, any kind of conflict that might arise for with their tenant. So I think what we can do is help the landlord come to an understanding, and that if they come to any problems, that the organization that houses them, they can be the direct link of communication, so that there's not that contentious point between the landlord and tenant, and we can resolve any kind of difficulties that we have before it gets to the point of evictions. So that'll be our focus for this coming year. And then we have emergency responses headed by Heidi from MLSC, and that came about from Typhoon Mawar, and just seeing how those that were affected. We did have a lot of people that were on the streets and that needed the help. And going to the shelters, and moving forward, if we have a storm, what's going to happen, transporting folks there, and getting them the resources they need after any kind of disaster response. So that'll be something that we handle in 2025 to make sure that the Homeless Coalition is part of that response. Like I said, so the accomplishments that we had as the coalition this year. We established our quarterly newsletter, and so that's just to keep the community informed of what we do, fresh fundraising strategies that we're trying to implement, new training opportunities for members. As part of the summit, we're trying to also implement some kind of training that we can, as a coalition, use to refresh our skills and our knowledge, and not just have this as just town hall sections or things like that. Well, make this something that's going to enrich our skills as part of the coalition. New approaches to outreach and greater interagency collaboration, as Lieutenant Governor said. The stronger our parts are, the stronger we become as one complete unit. Revised fiscal policies and procedures. That's more on the internal side. Like I said, we have a lot of requests for help. So just making sure that all of the documents are there, so that we can hand those over to Rev and Tax if we ever need to, and we have all our money in order. Annual funding forecast is also an internal thing. We are setting our goals for fundraising, so we know what our goals are for the year to reach, so that we can have the programs needed. And then new programs for reporting standards and program accountability. What we did is this year try to really focus on the internal part of what the coalition does, so that as we have our correct data, our data entry is good, and that we have the correct numbers on the reports. that we put out to the public also. And so we will have Asia continue with our other data.
All right. So in preparing for today and talking about such a critical issue as homelessness, which affects individuals, people, I kind of was trying to figure out, what does homelessness even look like? Do we know how many people are homeless, right? Is it the people that I see every day as I drop my child to school on the way out, right? And are gathering at the Catholic Church at Cathedral, in community after, being together and coming together at night? Is it the guy that I see cross donkey, right? Who sometimes there's a new face there. Is that representative of how many people are actually homeless, and what can we learn from those numbers? Because a part of what we do, it has to have meaning. And the strategies of the Guam Coalition, the strategies of our government, the strategies of nonprofits has to meet people where they're at. And so how many people are we looking at? Who really are the faces of the struggle out there? And what is it that can help them in a meaningful way? And not just in terms of what I think or we think or they think, or what we think is meaningful, but what they think is meaningful, and how we can cater and tailor programs to be able to help people, again, where they're at. So I went on a data quest to say, all right, well, let's look at numbers, because people are constantly wondering how many people are homeless. And one of the things that we did in preparing for this is pull those numbers and create a data framework. And I want to, as we go through the numbers, which are really important, I think going to shed a lot of light for people here. I want to kind of caveat and say that the numbers aren't perfect and they're limited. So what I might present to you today might not even capture the scale that lives here in our community in terms of homelessness. I want to kind of, before jumping, kind of preface where the data is coming from. So this data is looking at one day. On November 20th, I woke up and I said, Frank, can you send me a report? Because today I want to see today how many people are homeless. He pulls it from what's called the HMIS, which is the Homeless Management Information System. Right now on the HMIS, just so you know where these things are coming from, there are only 10 organizations who actively use the system to track data and coordinate services. This does not cover all of our homeless providers, okay? So understand that what we're looking at is a limited view. And one of our goals is to increase the uses of this, but there are definitely barriers to that. In the HMIS system, there are only 23 projects. However, not all projects, again, that provide homelessness services, even in the area of domestic violence, use the system. The use of HMIS ideally covers all community providers who execute relevant services. It would ideally do that so we can capture that, but it doesn't. And so what you see sometimes is that we couple what's in HMIS with the PIC count to give us more of a broader view. In terms of HMIS, it's the COC-funded organizations that are mandated, while other programs who have grants might require them to use that. They are entering into the system. And what I would say is that HMIS is cost prohibitive. It's expensive. And that's one of the barriers why we can't capture all the numbers that we need. And so as a community, thinking about how we provide resources to capture better data. So how many people are homeless on our beautiful island? We don't know exactly. However, given the systems that we have, on November 20th, there were 1,054 people who were homeless in our system. Breaking that down, right, we looked at household types. And what the data shows is that 59.9 of those households are single adult individuals. 27.7 are households with children, and 12.4 are households without children. That makes us start thinking about what are our programs looking like, right? One area of homelessness that is really critical is looking at vulnerable populations, specifically domestic violence. And this is looking at women and children who are fleeing from abusive situations. Well, victims, not just women and children. And so in the system, we have percentages that to me kind of look low, right? And so the households with DV tend to be much lower than the households without DV and the persons who are without DV. But I do want to note that there are only 2 providers who use the system who address domestic violence, while there are shelters and there are providers out there who do not. So what does this number really look like for our community is still kind of unknown. Who is homeless in Guam? We started to ask that question, and we broke down all the demographics, and this is sort of a significant piece of it, right? We want to get a picture of our community and who might be the most affected by homelessness. It's important to look at the numbers because we want to identify any disparity and equity issues. We need to ask the questions of, are our outreaches and services targeted enough? And who's impacted in terms of our most vulnerable populations? Children, pregnant women, DV victims, person with disabilities, and the Manumco, right? These are important communities that we looked at. And so what we found in terms of who is homeless, at the top are males. Persons who are identified as male were 59.4%. In terms of race, it's Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander at 86%. In terms of ethnicity, Chamorro was up there with 37.5% of the people in the system being homeless. Chukis was the next ethnicity affected at 35.9. But what I want to say about this right here is the issue of disparities in the system. When we look at how many people from these communities are part of our population, where we see that the Chukis community tends to be a smaller population than Chamorro, but yet there's about the equal number of percentage of people living in homelessness. That's a disproportionate number, right? And so how are we creating programs that really target and build on the strengths of that community to help people out of homelessness? The next part, and honestly, this was pretty staggering for me, is that 40% of homeless population are children and youth. And so majority of this number was, this number was categorized from 0 to 24, which by many standards, 24 is still considered a youth in different programs. But majority of those individuals are children under the age of 17, right? And so when we think about family shelters, are there enough? How are we keeping families together? Where are these children living? Are they in shelters? Are they on the streets? Where are they? And how are we helping them, not just in terms of shelter, but also in terms of services, right? And the adverse experience that they may be experiencing, which can affect their health outcomes. Next, pretty significant is the 25 to 55 years at 40%. But what I also thought was pretty high in terms of vulnerability was 55 and above. So our Manumco, where are they going? And as they age and their health becomes more complex, do our programs have what they need and the resources to address them at that level, right? We all, who have grandparents in here or parents who are aging, we know that it takes a significant toll on the family, and it takes a lot to caretake for a Manumco. And so what type of processes and services do we have that can help them as they struggle through homelessness? So I asked, where are people being served? So the HMI system looked at where people are placed, and you have households and persons. And I'm going to go through each of these categories because I think it's going to shed some light. When we look at the different numbers of the 1,054 individuals in the system, look at the numbers that are placed in emergency shelter, which we automatically think, well, there are shelters. People can go to shelters. Well, can they? So emergency shelter really is a place that provides temporary housing for people who are homeless, either in a general or specific populations. Emergency shelters can include facilities like congregate shelters, domestic violence shelters, or people living in temporary stays in motel or hotel situations. Not many people, right? And when I hover over the numbers and look at individuals, the PowerPoint won't let me do it. I'll just say that it's small. It's smaller than we thought that it was. And I just want to say that our first response to people who are homeless is thinking, let's put them in shelter. But what placement is showing is that not many of them are there. Where are they? People involved in homeless prevention programs, the second one, these are programs that aim to prevent people from becoming homeless. So this is like rental assistance, temporary financial assistance, case management, housing navigation. These are all things that kind of help people who may be at the brink or at risk of homelessness. Very important program on the preventative side. Permanent supportive housing is more long-term housing that provides a subsidy for rental assistance specific to people with disabilities, right? So this is a more limited program service because it's specific to individuals with disabilities. Rapid rehousing is permanent housing that provides short-term up to 3 months and long-term up to 24 months of tenant rental assistance and supportive services, so case management, et cetera, to households experiencing homelessness. It's also a pretty strong strategy you hear about, but it's not serving as many people as we thought. The street outreach projects are really looking at, it's work that's done exclusively with people living in places not meant for habitation. And so these types of programs only provide street outreach, and they're designed to meet immediate needs through case management, navigation, connecting with people, providing referrals. So no sheltering involved in street outreach. And as you can see, the largest place, this is the place where people get help the most, is with supportive services projects only. This means that no shelter is being provided for these programs, but what's being captured is people's living status as homelessness through things like substance abuse programs, case management and case navigation programs. These types of services seem to be the most engaging for a homeless community. So the question is, how do we take people who are involved in supportive services into a permanent housing? Because there's a huge gap between people on the street in supportive services and getting into more permanent situations. Ooh, Rob, help me. Okay, lastly, I wanted to know where were people coming from and how can we capture them early in the system to provide some sort of help. So HMIS captures people's prior living situations, and it asks them at the point of entry, where were you living prior to coming to us? And it categorizes sort of, where people come out of in homeless situations. And homeless situations are where people are either placed in emergency shelters, like a hotel or motel or facility, or they're places not meant for human habitation. So in their vehicles, an abandoned building, a park, a bus stop, etc. And as you can see, that is the biggest number of people and where they're at prior to coming in. And if you refer back into remembering that emergency shelter was the smallest, right? People are on the streets, or they're living in places that are not healthy and habitable for them. This is where our people are. We see that the number from the institutional placements are low. That's hospitals, jails, psychiatric units, and even substance abuse treatment. We see that temporary housing situation is decent, that's the next biggest number, and that's couch surfing, living with a family, living with a friend, not a place that you're actually renting. And then we see that there's some data that's not collected, and some people didn't want to answer, which is okay. But I think this paints a pretty good picture for us, at least to start coming up with the right questions and asking ourselves, what are our solutions? So I want to sort of end with a key takeaway on my part here. And as the chair of the GHC, the data really spoke loud and clear to me. And while it only led to more questions than answers, it gave me, and I hope all of you, a picture of at least where we need to start. One of the takeaways is that, can we understand our community better with this data? How many people are missing, and how do we get them help? And from the GHC, we have, and for you today, is a commitment and a push to collect and analyze the data more and get a better picture of how widespread our challenges are and how we can craft solutions that leaves nobody behind. My second takeaway is that we need more resources. And what are those solutions, right? We have to think outside of the box instead of just thinking, oh, everyone's in shelter and provide case management. Well, that's clearly not, there's a gap between those services. And so the data is pretty telling that most people suffering through homelessness are not in that shelter or in those hotel room stays. They're all around us. And so how do we create solutions that meet them where they're at, and what types of housing structures and programs will help us do that? And my last takeaway, really, I have a thing about PowerPoints, and I decided I'm going to copy this slide because my last and most important takeaway is answering this question: can you help? And for me and for the GHC, my final takeaway is yes, we can, and yes, we will. So thank you for taking that time for the data. And okay, and we're going to real quick talk a little bit about how the GHC does that. First and foremost, GHC hosts events throughout the year, which are a way for us to do outreach and get critical services. The first is the point in time count, which is our widespread island effort to go out there on the streets, you know, all around the clock to find individuals who are homeless and gather information so that we can have a good recording on the numbers of people in homelessness and what they're struggling with, and then also connect them to services. The second event is Passport to Services, which is a one-day event where we bring all community partners out. It's a fun event. It's usually at Chamorro Village, and we have basically one day where people don't have to go from village to village and get on transportation to try and access services. They're all there. The second event that we have that happened just this month is the mini medical mission, which is at the Hagåtña Library, Department of Health, Public Health and Social Services, and OHAP collaborated to provide outreach and a mini medical mission with the individuals there. And lastly, if y'all don't know already, we are having a ton of events for homeless awareness this month. And we are capping that off with a day of service where we will be providing feeding and meals for individuals in Hagåtña, Tumuning, and street outreach in Harmon. And that is happening next Wednesday. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Asia. So the next few slides, we'll go through the next few slides quick so we can get the senators up here. Thank you for waiting. So we're just talking about the funding for the COC, just as so everyone is aware of the amount and the numbers, where they come from. I did some digging, and so this is this graph. The two blue numbers, these are more federally determined numbers. The PPRN is something based on our location, our zip code. That's the number that they come up with for what we need. The estimated ARD, which is the annual renewal demand, is based on what we use here, how much we would get. So the tier 1 programs are, it says 90% of the ARD, and that's what we are allowed to, or what is available for us for our continuum of care. The COC bonus is 12% of the need, so that's an added amount to that. And then the domestic violence bonus, it's a separate pot of money based on, again, that top left number. And then the COC planning grant, which is more administrative, that comes 5% from that total number up there. So this is the amount that is allowed for the GHC or the COC to operate every year. And that's with outreach, that's administration. This on Guam is totaling, what, 4 houses? So if you think of how much it takes per person to help out, it's really not a lot of money. We could use a lot more, and that's something what we'll be working towards in the future also. Here are the COC funded programs. GURA has theirs, Housing First Rental Assistance. OHAP, that's going to be, we're approved for that one. That's going to be the domestic violence program. Harbors stands for Healing and Recovery based on reinforced supports. So we're looking probably in the middle of the year, all these programs start up. Catholic Social Service has Izahami still. They have the coordinated entry system, which is more of the data side. West Cares Manhali project. Salvation Army has the HMIS system, which is another internal system here. And our First Church of God has Anchor of Hope, which is also another domestic violence program. So with the action framework that we talked about, this is we went through our 1, 3, and 5 year plans. Just for this year, to go through what we did, what we wanted to do, increase information accessibility and awareness. So we, made sure our websites are up, communications committee updated the website, increased our social media input, increased landlord engagement. Again, we did the landlord survey in August. We'll use that information to engage landlords, create more opportunities. Homeless Coalition profile in the community. We submitted some letters to the editor this year, more TV and radio appearances this year, and we created our quarterly newsletter. Improved our internal practices. We revamped some of our stuff that we did and our data reporting requirements, and then increasing housing accessibility for vulnerable populations. So as Lieutenant Governor mentioned earlier, we're continuing to work on more facilities. go acquiring a few more facilities that we have, our Inigo apartments, our bed at night shelter that we're going to have. And then our Life Tech properties that we've seen that are coming online. So those, the Summer Breeze and the Ironwood type homes that are out there. So this is it, the last slide here. What we're going to do, everyone here is now tagged. This QR code, this promotion is going to run to Giving Tuesday, which is December 3rd. If everyone could, take a chance to scan the QR code and give what they can. There's predetermined amounts there, but there's another button to give any amount you can. So I'll leave this up here. Thank you everyone for being here. And we hope you enjoy the conference, and we'll get the senators up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rob and Asia. We'll have you guys just stay up here. It really is always humbling when you kind of look at the numbers. So without further ado, I like that word, I like that phrase right now. I would like to invite up Senator Roy Kanata, and then I also see Senator Jesse Lujan, and I believe Speaker Therese Terlahi is here as well to come up for the legislative resolution.
If we have any other colleagues from the 37th Guam legislature, please make your way forward. Okay, just want to cover that. Okay, thank you so much, Speaker Terlahi is in the House, and Senator Jesse Lujan for joining me today, and most especially each and every one of you for being here. We have a huge job ahead of us to continue and a lot more work to get done. So I have resolution 593-37 introduced by myself, Senator Roy A.B. Kanata, and the entire legislative body, relative to recognizing the Guam Homeless Coalition on promoting awareness on the observance of Homeless Awareness Month and commending them for their efforts, dedication, advocacy, and selfless acts of service for the people of Guam. Again, thank you so much for all your hard work, and we want to just recognize you guys and, continue the good work and let us know what we can do to support you guys. Unfortunately, I'm no longer going to be a senator, but I'm going to tag my colleagues here to make sure that you guys get funding for the services you provide to those who most need it. Thank you again so much.
And can I ask the other officers to come up here and we'll just take a picture with the senators? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senators, for being with us today and for presenting us that resolution. So the next thing that we have here on our agenda, I would like to welcome Micronesian Legal Services, Ji Hai Choi, to come up. She will be leading, actually, just kidding. They would like to take a break. Does everybody want to take a break and get some snacky snacks? Okay. Please come back at 10:15.
Test, test, test.
And then do you want me to be
Test, test.
So I'll just.
Sounds good. And do you think the panelists should already be seated?
Test, test, test.
Have them seated when they come. Let's have them just seated.
Test.
Solutions, pathways to support. Another important note is you have people. We don't have to touch on all the questions. We'll see. But yeah, I might have to cut people off if it's too long. Timing and then I'll conclude. MC.
Good. So, funny you're here because we're meeting with the agency. And we're in the final negotiations. Yeah. Well, we did. Yeah, not 50 pages, but we put it back together and we submitted it with the budget and Val provided me, numbers and stuff. So we did the whole proposal, everything we talked about, we wrote it up and, provided to them. So they're still stuck on the one night and I just will not budge. Right. Right, like, you're not addressing treatment at all. Right, and like, what makes you think we're gonna capture them in treatment when they're in and out? You know? It's like- Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And that's gonna be the linchpin for me. If they just say, no, that's what we need, I'm gonna say, well, we're not gonna compromise. Because we don't put people at risk and us and our community partners, we want to do the best thing possible for our community and we know that doesn't work. So. Are you? Cause I'm not feeling excited. I'm feeling a little like, we'll see what happens. Yeah.
What is the purpose? What would you try to do?
Exactly.
I think they're like.
I think we both know what the answer to that is. At least from, the standpoint of the old, or the general, I'm sorry. The general. So. For sure. Yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Seriously, right? And we have all the key players to make this, first of all, a safe program. We need somebody coming in, if we need drawing from the walls, in there or. Seriously, and it has to be done in a safe environment, like with the right people. Preaching to the choir. But we'll keep you guys, we'll keep you guys posted. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, okay, since we're in negotiations, I can't really, say too much, but, I'll let you all know the outcome. Well, with you guys, they're gonna be not never alone. Always in collaboration, right? Like we need Salvation Army, we need Lighthouse and Hoagie and all of us to really work together. 100%. Because none of us were gonna take it on by ourselves. So, what is this? You know, so yeah. So even if it doesn't get funded, I want to keep that proposal for like if an opportunity comes, down the road, because I just feel like it was a nice integrated kind of care that addresses homelessness in some senses, right? People living in the street and the investigations and the treatment part. So I like what we came up with. So I think I'm gonna keep it just on file in my head for, when the opportunity comes. They have the money. And the thing is that but you just need to put people in a hotel room and say, service 600 people. Yeah. When you really do it for them. All right, yep. Yep.
Yes, sir. I
Nice to meet you, Chris. Sorry.
Sorry, what agency?
Oh,
Oh, okay. All right.
guys. Thank you for being brave. Sitting up behind. The, the eye catcher has to be the.
Welcome back, everyone. Wow, that's loud. Hi. Okay, so we are kicking off our next session. I would like to invite up Jihei Choi with Micronesian Legal Services. We have a wonderful panel today talking about reframing homelessness and exploring identity-based barriers.
Good morning, everyone. One more time. Good morning, everyone. Much better. All right, welcome to our panel discussion on reframing houselessness, addressing identity-based barriers. My name is Jihei, and I am a paralegal at Micronesian Legal Services, and I will be your moderator for this session. I want to thank the coalition for organizing this event and all of you for taking the time to join us today. As a quick overview of our panel, our goal today is to explore how various identities, such as race, gender, immigration status, and disability, shape individuals' experiences of houselessness and impact their access to housing and resources. Today, we hope to foster empathy, challenge common narratives about houselessness, and discuss practical ideas for improving access to housing and support systems. Now, before we dive in, I'd like to make 4 quick important announcements and acknowledgements. So first, while our panelists bring very diverse and valuable insights, not everyone in this panel, including myself, has lived experience with houselessness. We understand that our perspectives are limited, and our aim today is to approach this conversation with humility, compassion, respect, and a willingness to learn. Secondly, houselessness intersects with many different identities and forms of discrimination or harm. While we will discuss some of these intersectional identities today, we recognize that it's impossible to cover all identities and systemic factors in such a short time we have today. This does not diminish the importance of those we may not address, and we encourage further exploration, research, and learning of these topics beyond today's panel. Third, we acknowledge that some of you in the audience may have had personal experiences with homelessness or intersecting identities. While the panelists' experiences are valuable, they do not invalidate your own experiences. We encourage everyone to keep an open mind as we respect the diversity of perspectives and lived realities present here today. And lastly, these conversations may touch on deeply personal and systemic issues such as discrimination, trauma, gender-based violence, and other sensitive topics. We recognize that these discussions may evoke strong emotions and resonate deeply with personal experiences. So we encourage everyone to prioritize their well-being during this session. Please feel free to step away, take breaks, get some water, or engage with the conversation in ways that feel safe, comfortable, and supportive for you. Today, our aim is to create a safe space rooted in respect, empathy, and understanding for all participants. All right. Now I am honored to introduce our panelists who bring a wealth of experience and insight to today's discussion. As I introduce each panelist, please feel free to join me in showing your appreciation for their time and contributions. Our first panelist is Tori Manley. Tori is a passionate advocate for community empowerment, sustainable self-development, and environmental healing. As a third-generation member of her family who has experienced homelessness, Tori's story is rooted in resilience and empathy. Her grandmother, after being vacated from her home, built a tin shack to shelter her 3 children before constructing a concrete house by hand. Her mother instilled an early awareness of the fear of homelessness, and Tori herself experienced homelessness for a short time, which helped grow her commitment to connection and advocacy. Her advocacy emphasizes the importance of individual impact, both positive and negative, and the belief that unsustainable development harms not only the earth, but also our collective well-being. Her ultimate goal is to help others foster sustainable self-development that uplifts individuals, strengthens communities, and nurtures the planet we all share. Next, we have Lindsay Williams. Lindsay has been involved in grassroots organizing in the States and on Guam for the last 16 years. She has worked with Food Not Bombs. She has worked with Victims Advocate Reaching Out, also known as VERO. She's worked with the community radio and an urban tribal member community center. She was a member of the founding team of organizers for Para Todos Hit from 2020 to 2023. Para Todos Hit is an autonomous mutual aid collective that distributes resources to local families in need, including unhoused people. Lindsay has 3 children and has lived on Guam for 10 years, where she is currently working as an invasive species biologist. And our third panelist is Curtis Bowermaster. So Curtis has been recognized as the governor of the homeless community in Hagåtña since 2023. Yeah. Currently unhoused, Curtis has devoted himself to advocating for the houseless community. He collaborates with organizations such as Catholic Social Services, Manyetlu, and the Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Prevention, serving as a liaison and championing the needs and voices of those experiencing homelessness. And our fourth panelist is Samuel Ilisuga. Sam is a first-generation Micronesian immigrant who lives on Guam and works at Gumamami, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing support and services to individuals with disabilities. Sam oversees Gumamami's Sagan Mami program as well as the Atbola program. The Sagan Mami program provides an enrichment center, a drop-in center, supported employment, and peer support mentorship to individuals with severe or serious mental illness who are experiencing homelessness or are at risk of becoming unhoused. The Atbola program provides case management system to individuals with disabilities who are survivors of sexual violence, many of whom have experienced homelessness. And in his spare time, Sam is fond of eating fish and taro with his fellow Micronesian migrant community members. All right, and finally, our and our last panelist is Christopher Francisco. Chris is the clinical director of the Salvation Army Lighthouse Recovery Centers, Guma Lalahi and Guma Bamalaan. Chris is a licensed clinical social worker, internationally certified alcohol and drug counselor, adjunct instructor with UOG's social work department, and a certified substance abuse counselor. In 2017, he graduated from UOG's social work program, and in 2019 graduated from University of Hawaii at Manoa Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health. Thank you again to all of our panelists for joining us today. Could we please just get one more round of applause? Now that I've introduced our amazing, beautiful, lovely panel, let's just dive right in. Our first question is, in your experience, lived, professional, or otherwise, how do identity factors such as race, gender, immigration status, and/or disability intersect or connect with houselessness? And what unique barriers arise from these intersections? And please feel free to address all or just parts of these questions, but I think we can start with Tori and then go down the line. Tori, would you mind kicking us off?
I'll do my bestest. Thank you. There is a game. Oh my. There's a game that I'm thinking of where you are noting where your privilege is. So you have a bunch of people, let's say all of us together, get in a line, and we are asked certain questions like, did you grow up with both parents? And then if you did, then you step forward one step. And then if you like went through speaking English throughout your whole life, and we live in a very dominant English speaking community, then you step forward. Even if you've had like 40 books in your house, then you step forward. Me and Lindsay did that game for our Vero victim advocacy training, and it really showcased how different everyone's situation is. And I bring that up just because we're living in a society that it feels like you constantly need to pay to be somewhere. And a lot of us do not have that capability. And a lot of us would rather just live life, I don't want to say without just paying for things, but with all these different intersecting things, eventually it does look like a lot of us could end up being homeless at some point in our life, or even just if it looks like couch surfing, that is a form of houselessness. And I wanted to address that just because there are 8 white men in this world that are richer than the poorest half of humanity. So in the Pacific region, that looks like 23% of our population. And this is all Yale statistics. I swear it's the only statistics I'll throw today. And to put that in Guam perspective for all the people that we have that are so disadvantaged in the systems that aren't built for us, it looks like 35,000 Guams are equivalent to the 8 people that have that much wealth. So that is incredibly overlapping. We're living in a system that is not built for us, and everyone in here is doing their absolute best with what they have. So that is what I can offer.
Lindsay, could you mind going next?
I just like to piggyback off of what Tori was saying, because I think in our experience as a teenager, I also experienced homelessness, but I think we've experienced a lot of different factors coming together to create disadvantages for ourselves as young people, and just have seen how that has played out in the world around us. And we do live in a society with a system that does not prioritize people with any kind of deviation from the norm. Anyone with a disability, whether that's visible or not, anyone, like Tori said, who doesn't have English or the dominant language as the first language, people who may not have received the best education, may have a learning disability. Basically all that to mean that all of us at one point or another, like we're all just a hop, skip, and a jump away from, maybe being unhoused ourselves. So I think as a society, we have to be considering how all of these factors intersect. And that has to be like a constant thing that we are considering.
My turn? I need to- yeah, this is- thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Curtis Bowermaster, also known as AKA the Governor of Agania. Anyways, what she said with races and disabilities and stuff like that, I don't look at that. I look at every single one of you as a regular human being. No matter if you're a disability, if you're Chucky, Filipino, Filipina, Chamorro, anything, we are all one. We are a family. Right now in this room, we're all family. We're not here just to listen to everything here. We're here to help each other get better. Okay, that's what I do in Agania. Mr. Mike, where are you at, Mr. Mike? Mr. Mike comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm homeless, Curtis. They told me to come to you." And he's Filipino. He's talking to me in Filipino, but I'm trying my best too to listen and understand what he's saying. Right? I have another example. Oh, hi, Ruben. Ruben comes up to me. I'm having a hard time listening, but I do the best I can to help every single one out. Okay? So I don't judge people. I'm not racist. Okay? Even if me being gay, if you have anything to say, I'm proud to be who you guys think I am. Thank you.
All right, so I guess it's my turn. Yeah. Uh, well, so I think I can speak to some of the factors, the identity-based factors that you've mentioned. One, I work in the area of disability. Second, I'm an immigrant. So I think those are the two that I can at least speak to. But before I get any further, I just want to say that these factors are identifiers, but they don't identify us as individuals, right? So as a micronesian, that's an identifier that I have. But in terms of accessing services, that doesn't define me. As a person with a disability, the disability doesn't define you, but it identifies you, right? And I'm kind of trying to use uh, make that thing distinction because the experiences of those who have those identities can be different. All right. So when I speak, I'm generalizing. Right, that, what I may say may not be true in some cases, but I'm just trying to say things in general. In terms of the intersection of these identity factors and homelessness, for one, I can say that a lot of individuals with disabilities are trying to recover from homelessness. And a lot of individuals who, or I can say a lot of Micronesians, are also experiencing homelessness. And those are, for me, homelessness is a situation that they end up in, and it's because of uh, the disparities that they experience in our communities. And I hope those are the things that we can talk about, and we can try to address the disparities that we all experience based on our own identity factor. I know and I'm very glad to that we did the presentation before this, and to hear the lieutenant governors share some of the things that are in the pipeline. One of the questions that he left us with was, do we see things better now than before? From my experience in the field and as a person living in this community, I think we have come a long way. We have a lot of things that we're very proud of, but still we have a long way to go. And I trying to think of those things that uh, we can work on. Some of them were mentioned. We have a lot of facilities, great, but then we need to work on maybe making it better in terms of our accessibility of those facilities, right? When I say accessibility, it's not just accessibility in the uh, terms of uh, facility or physical accessibility, but also maybe like in some culturally competent services, right? Linguistically, language access, right? So for me, when I look at things in the bigger picture, things are kind of getting in place. Things that we need to really address. The issue of homelessness are being worked on, and a lot of them are being initiated by the coalition. But it's how we can make those programs or those facilities or those services address as an be accessible uh, to the different groups with those different identity factors. And I'll just like we still for the both doesn't factors that I identify with, we have a long way to work on economic challenges. Right? We have a long way to work on gaps in services. We still have a lot of improvement to do in terms of housing stability. So, and then also addressing the stigma that comes with all these identity factors that kind of interferes with our access to programs and to services and to assistance. I think I hope we'll be getting into those more in details, but I think I've kind of talked enough. So thank you.
So as a part of our services, the Salvation Army Lighthouse Recovery Center conducts 3 homeless outreaches per month. And as a part of that, we collect stats on the people who we encounter. We collect stats on age, ethnicity, gender. And some of the things that we've noticed is that overwhelmingly, the 2 main subgroups of homeless individuals on island are Chamorros and people from the FAS community, particularly the FSM. We also collect some stats on gender identity, but when it comes to barriers, a lot of these individuals do not have basic things in order to participate in services. And I'm talking about an ID, particularly with the FAS community, in that if you weren't born on Guam and you don't have a birth certificate, you know, there's a lot of barriers into getting an ID so that you can go to a shelter or participate in some kind of rehousing services. So that is the biggest barrier that we encounter. Overwhelmingly, again, one of the issues that we encounter is that for the individuals who are homeless, more often than not, they report having a substance use disorder or a mental health disorder or both. And we don't just collect stats just to collect stats. Yes, we collect stats in order to try and connect them with the proper services. At the LRC, if you are a person seeking SUD treatment, substance use disorder treatment, and you identify as homeless, then that puts you at a priority for admission in our program. And so, and we continue to conduct these every month. And one of the groups that we're seeing is transgender individuals who are also homeless, and they report experiencing a lot of discrimination because of their identity, as well a lot of abuse because of their identity. And that's just some of the information that we've collected. Barriers to services, documentation 1, transportation is another one. And then funds and availability, like how paying for an ID or things like that. But yeah, that's what we encountered in our stat collection.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your responses. So I've been, thank you for bringing up these topics on language access, disability, connections with mental health, immigration, IDs. One thing I wanted to delve deeper into is the connection between gender and houselessness. Would anyone like to elaborate a little bit more on the intersections between gender and houselessness?
Based on the stats we've collected, that there's no huge disparity between gender and houselessness. You know, it's you know, a lot of the financial difficulties and burdens that males face, females also face as well. So that's been our experience.
Would any of the women like?
Hello. So when I do talk to people in the houseless community and just being a woman myself, we are all very aware of certain rules that we live by, like go in groups to the bathroom, have some sort of mace or weapon in your hand when you're gonna go out. And I'm sure this isn't just for women, this is for a lot of individuals. But when I think of the intersection of gender alongside houselessness, I hear a lot of women say like, they do things that are called invisible work. Invisible work is like you're almost expected to do it just because society has kind of put you not towards that box, but they've assigned to you a certain role. So recently I've spoken to someone who is houseless and she's in an abusive relationship, and she felt the need to, of course, she cares about her in-law. So she escaped her abusive ex-boyfriend, took her father-in-law, and they are still houseless together. But she felt the need to also care for herself, but also for another person. And alongside with my grandma, she did not have the help that she needed at the time. I feel like if she was houseless during this time, she would be able to have the help that she could have had. But it was a lot of you should have, would have, and could have done all of these things. And it's, from what I've seen, a lot of different mental barriers alongside other barriers that we have already. So that's what I have to add.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this?
Uh, I just want to add on that this was she mentioned the domestic violence. I think most of the individuals that we work with, uh, survivors and people who are going through domestic violence, and it's usually the female who ends up on the street. And that's what we find when you compound these issues with domestic violence or sexual assault. In most cases, it's the woman is that gets to be houseless.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sam. I was wanting to reference that as well because that's something that I've seen frequently is that oftentimes women and young people experiencing domestic violence are going to end up on the street, or I've also seen people just living in shacks in the jungle with all their kids because they don't have a safe place to stay at home. I think it's amazing that we have organizations like Vero, victim advocates reaching out to aid individuals who are experiencing or trying to leave situations of domestic violence. But absolutely, I think gender is a big factor in whether someone's going to experience homelessness. And sometimes I think it's harder for people with multiple children to leave situations. I mean, it's definitely harder for people with children and individuals that they're caring for to leave dangerous and violent situations, and they're more likely to have fewer resources when they do leave. So it leaves them in a very vulnerable situation.
Okay, what Tori says, Lindsay said, Sam and Chris. Gender is a big factor in homelessness. Why? Because a female will come up to me and say, I need to talk to somebody because she's been beaten up by her boyfriend or husband. And before I speak to the female, because I do not want to be accused for CSE. Everybody knows what CSE means, right? No? It's criminal sexual conduct. I don't really like to say it, but I'll say CSC. It's criminal sexual conduct. I do not want to be accused of doing that to that female that just came up to me. I will ask her, are you okay? Do you want me to get you help? I can call GPD. That's the best thing I can do. I cannot just sit there and talk to her. And if I talk to her without permission, where she gives me the authorization to talk to her, and then she accuses me for the criminal sexual conduct, which I would never do. Like example, Lindsay here needs help. And I accidentally put my hand on her, she's gonna think that I touched her. So before I talk to any female, I ask them, do they want me to call GPD? Okay. For the males, I can talk to them because we're both the same gender. But I'll ask the males same thing also. Do you need help? You want me to call GPD? First thing is the emergency, like what they were explaining here earlier. The emergency. But they said, but they just need to talk to someone. So I'll sit down and talk with the males, but I keep my distance. Same thing. So being the genders are a big factor in this whole thing. Okay. A lot of people are being accused of being being family violence, criminal sexual conduct. That's why with the homeless out here, what I see in my eyes with the genders is majority of the guys that are out on the streets. You're right, Tori, Lindsay, Sam, and Chris. You guys are right. It doesn't matter if you're a female or a male. It's both the same. That is out here in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to speak on this? If not, let's move on to our next question. So I remember Sam and Chris, you mentioned the intersections between cultural competency, cultural and ethnic identity, specifically in connection with houselessness. Uh, could you elaborate more on that? How is having a certain culture or ethnic identity, how does that affect experiences with houselessness? And are there any barriers, unique barriers, or things like that?
Well, I'm just gonna speculate on this, right? Because I don't know the origins of how the individuals that we encountered, or they won't disclose it to us. I will say this, that there's support. Like, I'll use myself as an example. If I lost my job tomorrow, if I was destitute tomorrow, there are people that I could tap into because I do have family here, and and I could stay until I get back on my feet. Some of these people don't. Some of the people that we encounter do not have that kind of support. So that could be one reason.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as as immigrants, you always, of course, you need that support, and but also I'm trying to okay, let me cultural competency. So, I mean, like in I think it's from my experience, it's always very helpful to have peers to help you. And that's a movement out of PF for Health area where we're having some peers try to help others because they can relate, and it's easier for those who seek services to relate to them, and it improves the accessibility. And that also translates to ethnic groups. When you have your own people helping you, it helps. It helps with the language. It helps with some of the things that are not seen up front. How you behave, how you approach a person, the emotions that you get. Uh, it helps a lot. Again, in terms of accessibility, that's one area is to have peers helping others. I know in our migration communities, some people seeking assistance would be reluctant to go to a place if they're not very familiar with the people and the place that they're going to. And as immigrants, English is not our first language. For some of us, it's very difficult to communicate. So when I say culture, it's not just a cultural practice, but it's the whole cultures and aspect of things. Yeah, I think I'll stop there, or else I'll start to get into discrimination and stigma and other things.
Thank you so much, Sam and Chris. Would anyone else like to? Thank you. Would anyone else like to touch on this topic?
I would like to add to that, Sam. There's so much that I don't know. Just putting that out there as a panelist, I'm so sorry. But there's just so much that I don't know as like an American citizen who has grown up with a certain viewpoint and certain perspectives that is very normal. So if you ever look at like movies or TV or like American cinema, it's just very neutral family. You have like two kids, mom, dad, and then you're expected to like go to school, go to college, go off on your own. It's a very homogenous, supposed to be a very same lifestyle, but that is just not the reality literally anywhere, especially in Micronesia. So when I got to help with Zero Down after Typhoon Marwar, I was just like, I was rattled. I was like, oh my gosh, there was just so many things that like I didn't know where there are people that lived like this, and it made me very sad. But I talked to someone in Manyetlu who was also immigrant from Chuk, and he said that this is totally normal. This is fine. I don't see anything wrong with this. And I was like, what? Like there's dirt floors and there's like a tin roof. And he's like, I have my family. I have the things that I grew and I catch. So I'm happy and I'm healthy. My family's here with me. We're able to save money to bring more family, or we're able to send money to the home islands to help them. So they were perfectly content. And that really challenged my perspective as an American citizen, because having that homogenous, very same lifestyle, that you're only exposed to that kind of lifestyle, and then you see other ways of living that is beautiful and is okay and very well accepted, is so different. And the more we get awareness of all the different cultures and different ways of living, like different identities, different cultures, we learn more how to connect with each other. So it's, as Jihei said, really just the willingness to learn and willingness to show up for all of you as our one human family. So that's what I have to add. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm always having this difficulty of trying, especially when a question is framed. So I was trying to, when I talked earlier, I'm trying to distinguish between cultural group and immigration group. Because they come with different factors. But I'm just gonna throw it in there. It's not so much cultural, but there are some barriers that we face as immigrants, and they're not cultural. They're just because of our immigration status, right? Whereas especially in terms of seeking services, right? There are some services that we're not eligible for because we're not U.S. citizens, right? And that kind of again amplifies this issue of homelessness, right? And then there are some practices that we practice that we think are discriminatory, but not culturally discriminatory, but because of our immigration status again. Um, like for example, right? Whereas if I'm looking uh, for housing assistance, right, and I apply for a federal government program, and because I'm not U.S. citizen, I'm put on kind of my priorities not aside those who are U.S. citizens, right? So there are priorities within certain programs that kind of put us. It's a disadvantage to us as immigrants. And I mean, like he mentioned, all these as immigrants, we need to kind of provide more documentation, right, to prove that we're here legally, and to prove that we're eligible for the programs that we're applying for. So the need for documentation, again, we see that a lot more with immigrants than other groups. And like I now they're starting, the landlords are starting to do this thing where they do credit check, right? When you're trying to rent a place, you can come from YAP as a person with financial backing, right, to be able to afford your rent for the rest of your life. But in our islands, we don't report to the credit bureau, right? So when they run your credit is not good. So we're not gonna give you the apartment, right? So it's kind of like those practices that are disadvantage to us. Again, not because we're an ethnic group, but it's because of for us an immigration status.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to speak? Would anyone else like to speak on this?
Okay. With my experience being out here as homelessness, with the cultures of different nationalities. Okay, I look at it as a learning experience because anybody's culture, we can learn from it. It doesn't matter which nationality or the cultures, you can learn from it by surviving out here. Okay, example, tomorrow's culture is almost similar to the FSM. FSM is they survive by making what do you call those things? The one you fish, the one you throw the thing and it catches the fish. What do you call that one? No, not talaza. That's the net. No, the what do you call? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? It's like something a spear. The spear. Yeah, spear. See, with FS, with I have a couple of my friends that show me how to do that, how to survive out in the street, not to kill somebody or not to find a cute guy or the pretty girl. No, no, no. It's to catch the fish or the what do you use those 8 legs? Those legs, the one that suck there. Thank you, sir. Well, see, with all these different cultures out here in the streets that of my experience, I learn from it. I don't discriminate the cultures, but if I see something wrong in that culture, I say, hey, you're not in your hometown, you're not in your state or your island or wherever you're from. You are on the island of Guam. You are here to make yourself a better person. So it doesn't matter who you are. You're out here to help yourself learn of other cultures. So I don't discriminate with any cultures because these cultures that I learned in my past, my experience out here, thank you to all my family out here.
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, we will move on to our next question. So I wanted to shift our focus to the impact of stereotypes. So my question to our panel today is, what are some common stereotypes or misconceptions about the houseless community on Guam that you have seen and or experienced and or heard of throughout your life and work? And how have you seen these stereotypes impact both individuals and communities?
I'd be okay to go first. Thank you. So when it comes to the houseless community, as you heard in my bio, my mom instilled a very deep fear of being houseless at a very young age. So I really just like went through and I'd like, okay, we're driving and I'm like, that if I'm ever homeless, that looks like a good spot. That looks like a good spot. And let me collect my thoughts. I'm so sorry. That just like, ooh, that kind of triggered me a little bit. But thank you. She said I could take my time. But what I was trying to get at is that I was so worried about being houseless. It almost at a young age, I acted like I was going to catch it or something. So that's not to discriminate in any way. That was more of a joke. But I just see a lot of people and they get very fearful. And when you have fear, it is biologically there to help keep you safe. So from your experiences, like if you touch a hot stove, you know to not touch a hot stove anymore. So with the houseless community, there is a huge underlying fear that goes along with stereotypes, and it can be very hurtful. It can be harmful for Curtis and the people around us, Miss Beverly that walked out. And it's just the sort of things that we perpetuate every day with the perspectives that we have, but we may not realize that we have them because most of us may have grown up in these sort of cultures where loitering is not okay. Just the existence of just being here without a purpose, just being somewhere is like already a big no-no. Or like soliciting, just hanging out somewhere without money. How many places can you think of where we could collectively be with other people that are so different from us without paying for something or without needing a purpose to be there, just to exist? We cannot think of a lot of different places, but when we do think of those kind of places, I've already seen very harmful perspectives for certain services. So when I was growing up, once you eat dinner, you pack up your food and then you take that food for your lunch the next day. I would always do that. And one of my classmates was like, "Are you poor or something? Why are you eating all these leftovers?" I was like, "We're just saving resources, lady. Why are you being so hurtful about just saving resources?" So just languages that we have can help promote a lot of negative stereotypes just for existing, just loitering. The word panhandling is a North American term, which is more common in North America to use that term than anywhere else in the world. That's quote unquote our word, which is very harmful already. So are there places that we can be at where we can just be and not have negative stereotypes against the houseless community? I have another example. So in Europe, they have there's a certain country, I forget the country, but they have hot springs, and the government decided to use that towards social well-being for their people. So they have rules as to like how to keep it clean, but it's free for the public and you're able to just relax and meet people. And it doesn't matter if you are a billionaire or if you're houseless, if you're a school teacher or you own a Lamborghini, for goodness heavens, but you're able to just be without the language of soliciting, just being somewhere without purpose. You can just have your social well-being met. And with that, you can have different resources. You can be exposed to different people that are different from your own. How many of you have like negative stereotypes about your body, just you and your body? It's just things that have been ingrained in us for a very long time. And just being around different people of different walks of life with places that we could have can help address different stereotypes that are very harmful toward different people. That's what I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you repeat that question? Because I got lost.
Of course. Okay, so this question is, what are some common stereotypes or misconceptions about the houseless community that you have seen or experienced or heard of? And how have you seen them impact our community?
Okay, that's a tough question. I should win Miss Guam Universe. Anyways, with my experience, me being homeless, but I wasn't homeless at the time. I look at all the homeless before, panhandling, standing around. I was like, wow, they really do need the help. I have not heard anything in the news about the homeless before I became homeless. If you look into the window look out the window of the vehicle, you're like, oh, she's capable to work. Whatever. I'm not gonna give her no money. You know, there's some people like that. When I came homeless and I see why, okay, some of them have a disorder of what do you call that? Two personalities in them. Bipolar, thank you, sir. Yeah, bipolar. That's the reason why some of them cannot work. Or some of them cannot work because they dislocated their back. With that experience of what I saw touched my heart. I thank the Lord for making me being out here with the homeless family, helping them. Okay. The problem about that I really, 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 really hate, where I'm going to take a bottle of Excedrin, Motrin, Tylenol, whatever, is when the government some of them are very disrespectful to the homeless community. Ma'am, I'm sorry, you guys can't stand over there. Get out of here. And they're not even on their property. I understand if you're going to be on the property, the main thing of being nice and generous is put signs up and put rules in the parks. Because a lot of the homeless family cannot sit in the bench of the park because they're worried about tourists. the big concern is the tourists. We do understand, but I'm just gonna say the homeless community, the homeless family, and the nonprofit organization. Thank you guys for understanding the government. And please continue on with what you guys have to do. Because me, I fight for everybody. I stand there. One time I almost went to jail. The governor of Agana almost got arrested. Because you know why? I stood up to the park police. Curtis, you know you guys can't be sitting there. I go, excuse me, where's the rules and regulation? Where is the rules? Where is the sign? Put it up. If you want us to understand it, then put it up. Are you acting smart, me, Curtis? Oh, you want me to be smart? I'm being smart and telling you to put up the rules. I fight for my family out here. I don't say the homeless people. I don't. I say my homeless family, my second family in life. Thank you.
So on the LRC, when we do outreaches monthly, the majority of people that we encounter, just the general community, are supportive of our tasks that we're doing. There's been a couple of times, and one time sticks out in my mind because this person was being aggressive and we were distributing food bags to people in Agana. I have to be careful to choose my words so I don't out this person, but they came up aggressively to our team and he's like, why are you giving these people food? Why are you giving these people food? Don't you know that they can work? Don't you know that they come here and they commit crime? Don't you know that they mess up this place? And, you know, we're trying to feed people. We're trying to feed people who are hungry. We're not passing out cigarettes or we're not doing that. And, you know, I guess there is a portion of the community that views, you know, that lacks the compassion to see, you know, what they see as ill effects of some, but they don't see the general community as people in need. And I think that's the biggest one, lazy. Why don't you just work? You know, yeah, it's a lack of compassion. That's a big stereotype that we encounter. Right.
Thank you so much.
Can I say something about what Chris said about when this person came up to them and said, why are you giving food to them? For these people, they mess up the place. In reality, in my eyes, it is not only the homeless people that are criminals. Okay. Lately, a lot of places being robbed. Oh, that's a homeless guy. Look, 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 look. That's a homeless guy. Are you sure? Because before you say a homeless person is doing this, come to me and show me the video. Show me the footage, and I will tell you. It's not only for the homeless or the public. If it's the public, I would say that's the public. That's not one of my family members. Because in reality, I'm tired of hearing homeless, homeless, homeless is dirty. Homeless is a crime. They do crimes. They say, no, it's not true. Us homeless family out here in Agana, Harmon, Dedito, Chigo, all over the island, we try to keep the place clean. And we're trying to help the community find the criminals that are robbing our restaurants, our stores. Because, man, I need a new panty and bra when I go there, but it's stolen. But yes, little does the public don't know is that the homeless are the ones helping out looking for the criminals. So we should get a badge for GPD. Thank you.
Lindsay or Sam, would you like to speak?
I just wanted to add what Curtis said. Just working with the houses community, like, yes, they are very knowledgeable. They know what happens. Like, they have their eyes and ears just out and about. They notice things. They're beautiful observers. Like, they'll know if something has happened within their community, and they're very adamant to speak about it, which I'm very thankful for. So thank you so much.
Lindsay or Sam?
Yeah. Oh. So one of the things that I was very happy to hear as an initiative by the coalition is to work on with the landlords. And so there is this stereotype, especially for the individuals that my organization works with on the street, and these are individuals with disabilities, most serious mental illness. Uh, of course, when we're trying to seek as an assistance, there's always this fear by the landlords that if we put them in there, they'll tear up the place, right? Or they'll destroy their apartments, and that's one stereotype that we're trying to help with. We've encountered some landlords who are very helpful, and I think what's been working and what has worked is that this partnership with the landlords, that if they understand that we're there to support, kind of like what Rob was saying as the middle person, it helps. And also for them to understand that not everyone off the street is violent, uh, and not everyone off the street is going to uh, devalue their properties. Um, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to briefly touch on a few of the different topics that everyone mentioned. Thank you so much for all of your perspectives. It's great hearing these. One of the things that not myself, but other people who work together in Bara Todoset, one of the things that they wrote about and really emphasized was a return to cultural values of reciprocity and community care. And one thing that came up pretty consistently when we talked about what our goals were was just combating stereotypes and ideas that kind of have been forced upon the Chamorro community and the Pacific Islander community by the US, by other colonial powers, values that don't match cultural values, values that are material and capitalism based, and returning to the ideas of reciprocity and community care, prioritizing those in decision making would go a long way toward challenging stereotypes and changing the way certain populations, certain ethnic groups are viewed, and the way they are or are not cared for in our community.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to our next question. Thank you again so much for all your responses. So for this next question, I would like to shift our focus on community solutions, like Lindsay mentioned about community care. My question is, are there approaches or solutions you've seen in your experience that support people from diverse backgrounds in securing housing? Do you have any ideas for building support, connections on our island and amongst our service providers?
Okay, I'll be the first one again. Okay, with my experience out here, we have disabilities. We have people that are kind of they have a disorder of hearing voices in their minds and everything. My idea for a disability, that an individual that's homeless out here on the island of Guam, that is on a wheelchair and has amputated legs or arms, I tried to find a solution to help that person, but my ideas for we need is not only housing for them, but we need help for them, like caregivers, caregivers to help come out and help this individual, because it's very hard for the homeless family out here, anywhere on Guam, with the disability. It's hard for us too, because we have other things to do for ourselves as well. With disabilities, it's very hard. So please, we need to find a solution or help for these individuals on a wheelchair. Okay, we do not need these guys out here in the street. We need them in a better place. Let them live their life better, not on the streets. That's what I'm trying to do, to get them in, to get them the help, but I don't have nobody to help me with that. So that's another idea that we need to get someone out to help them out. With Guam Behavioral's families that are out here, yes, Guam Behavioral is doing a good job by helping them, but we need their caseworkers out, coming out and communicating with them, because some of them come to me and they tell me that my caseworker is not helping me. So you're the governor of Organic, can you please help me? And when they cry, it makes me cry. Because you know why? It hurts because that's my family. No matter who you are. You can have a one eye on your head, you're still my family. Okay? But the case workers of Guam Behavioral, is there any Guam Behaviorals here? No? Or you? You're a caseworker? Not a briefcase, but you know, a caseworker. Okay. We need them to come out in the street to help their clients, because their clients are thinking they're alone. These clients are the ones that can hear voices in their heads. Sir, don't be laughing. See me in my office when we get back down to Agana. But anyways, these clients come from a disability of hearing voices, or they have Parkinson and all that. But yes, can someone please reach out to Guam Behavioral and ask them, do you guys have any clients out in the street? Please go out and see your clients, because your clients are feeling alone. Thank you.
So maybe you can clarify, this was a question of about placement for individuals who don't have homes, or?
Let me just repeat the question. Are there approaches or solutions you've seen in your experience that support people from diverse backgrounds in securing housing? And do you have any ideas for building more support and connections, as well as empathy on our island and amongst service providers?
So in my experience working with individuals who enter my program, unstably housed or street homeless, placement is not the final outcome. Placement is just the beginning. It's the case management work that follows that's truly important. If somebody has a mental or physical disabling condition, home visits are important. Helping that person with budgeting, peer support work is important. And really moving the person towards some form of self-efficacy is really important. So the fact that you can place somebody in a home, it still requires more work on. And what he was talking about, Curtis was talking about caseworkers. Yeah, that's really important. Home visits are important, because a lot of the clients that I've worked with, budgeting may not be a skill that they have, which is a skill that we work on, as well as, upkeeping their home, because there's certain rules so sometimes we'll get calls from landlords, like, you need to come and check on your client because they need to clean their house, and when they go for an inspection, so we have to, we help them with that. And I don't want to maybe in this situation, I don't mean socialization to be bad word, but we try and help them upkeep the home. And I tend to use the term self-efficacy more than socialization. Just me more. Okay. Yeah, so case management work and casework is important.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a few that I just kind of jotted down. So I'm just going to read them off. So one, maybe if we can implement a no wrong door policy. What I mean by no wrong door policies, all of us, when a person is seeking assistance and they come to you, and if they're not eligible for your program, how can we refer the person or not refer? Maybe have connect a person to another organization without sending the individual back and forth between all of our offices. I just last week I was helping a family was looking for housing. They came because they heard Guam has homes. They came and I said, okay, this is the process and this is where you go. The person went and did everything that was told, and then at the end they said, oh, no, we don't have that kind of home or program. And that's it. They came back and said, well, the department couldn't help me. I said, okay, what about going to this another program? And later on, I received a call from, they got exhausted from going to all these different programs. So maybe if we can have a way of doing referrals that won't require the person to be running around, right? And maybe a referral system that will be timely. When a person comes to you, you help the person, although they don't meet your program criteria, maybe something electronic, enter the person's information into a system and another organization picks it up and contacts a person and goes out and assists the individual. So that's one that came to mind. Another one is we really need to work on enforcement of the anti-discrimination laws, right? We have all these federal laws and local laws that are meant to help people, but we need someone or people to kind of enforce them, right? From as a I've heard a lot of stories from my Clinician families being thrown out of their apartment. They miss a rent for the month, and 1 week later, the landlord comes and tells them, "Oh, you didn't pay last month. You get out of here." But I think there are laws that are in place to kind of protect people, right? So those things need to be enforced. Another model that I kept thinking of is this housing first model, where I had the opportunity to visit a facility in the States where they apply this housing first model, where you have the facility with no rules, right? A person comes in to have a roof over their head, and the services come in to after, right? Then treatment comes in after the person. One of the problems that we find with the individuals that we work with is we can have all the facilities that we want, and once you put up rules, they walk out of there. Some of them don't want to be in these programs because we have rules. Some of them too strict, right? So maybe if we can have a program where uh, we bring them in first, put them under a roof, and we bring in services after. And again, this idea of services following the individual, right? Like what you were saying. We work with a lot of individuals on the street where we think they need services from other departments. And when we call it in, they require the person to come into the office. And we get frustrated because we want them to come out and provide the service or at least address the situation where the person is. And I think that's where this uh, I have this idea of creating a comprehensive support program. And when I say comprehensive, it's more than just case management, right? It's really going out there and helping people from 8 to 5 where they are, right? To prevent them from either becoming homeless or helping them to get into housing. My very first introduction to disability work was in a program where we did that. Our goal, I mean, the program was designed as a comprehensive case management program, where we would come in, clock in, pick up our vehicles, and we spend the whole day working out there with the individuals. And what now I can see that happened back then was by us going out there and spending time and trying to help people stay either in their apartments or help them to see places, kind of prevented them from becoming homeless. And now I'm very sad. When I drive the street, I see them on the road now. And I've shared this with some of my colleagues that I get. Now I'm getting emotional. Like I get like very emotional. Like see, like that's why we needed comprehensive more than uh, just case management, the typical case management, and now that leads me to this idea of having nonprofit do the work. Once as an I think the nonprofit organizations do better work than the public than the government. And I think it's because for those of us who are in the non-government, we do hard work or the work. Okay, now I'm getting emotional again. The work is from our heart, right? Although it's hard, it's really from our heart. And again, this is not sorry, getting emotional again. This is not a complaint about the government, but it's really the nature of the institutions, right? We, as the nature of nonprofits, we're more flexible and more, we can do things that people in the government cannot or have hard time doing. So I don't know, like give the work to nonprofit and let them do their magic, and government give them the money and you just stay out of the way. That's my solution.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Tor Tori or Lindsay, would you like to speak on this?
I'm trying, God. Governor said do it. Okay. I'd love to piggyback on what Sam and Chris said about case management. Nothing too technical, but I just see I'm very visual. So I see like an image of a Coke bottle. You have all the liquid inside, and then you have what's called a bottleneck effect, where there's the hole in which the liquid comes out. And of course, it's not going to all come out all at once. It needs to like flow through and then spill out. So when I see case management, I definitely think of all the houseless community where me as an individual or like just as a community member and advocate, it's hard to help them when they have a caseworker already, but the caseworker is just respectfully, yeah, they're just MIA or they're overburdened with a lot of other cases. So that is a part of the bottlenose effect. So one of the things that I want to bring to the table today is just community empowerment. You are all wonderful human beings that are here that just want to hear from people like Curtis and people from the community to give your good impact in your own way that you can. And that is a diversified individual or collective impact. So with the bottlenose effect, it's very much how can we funnel everyone to these resources, but then unfortunately, they have the risk of having the runaround because there could be grants that aren't available this cycle, but it'll be available next cycle. So, the information that you've given out for your outreach was valid 2 weeks ago, but it's not valid today. So therefore, we need you to take that person that you've worked so hard to help and put them somewhere else, but not here. So something that my grandma got to experience was during Vietnam, there was a lot of people that were political refugees coming in from Vietnam. And the governor asked for several different families to house people when they could. So my grandma was so kind-hearted to take in a family from Vietnam. So if she wasn't able to take in that family, they would be staying in Adelup until they could get the service, the help, the runaround, the caseworker that they need. So with that, me and Lindsay, we did some para todos hit work together when there was a huge case with the mall. If you guys don't know, there was property right next to Micronesian Mall, and there were people living there. And the DA's office, the people that are in charge of those lovely signs, the people in charge of those lovely signs came up to us, and they were very aggressive. It looked like they had the process of like how to help someone, very systematic. It was very sound, but they also came up to us, people who just were willing to witness the hardship and to have that connection and to be able to help in our own way. They said, if you really cared about these people, you would take them into your home. How many of you guys actually live alone? How many, if you can raise your hand, how many of you actually live alone? Bless your hearts. How many of you are sturdy enough in your rent that you know you're going to be okay for the next 3 months? And if you have the finances, you'll be okay for the next 3 months if anything, God forbid, were to happen. Thank you for being very stable. I'm very proud of you. But that's not the case for a lot of people. I felt really sad because I couldn't take people home. Like I'm a little borderline, like houseless still. Like I'm still under the poverty line. I'm still doing my best, but there's a good way to diversify our community help. And a big one is just being aware of different things, having the willingness to learn and help, and just to hear people. Sometimes people just need to be heard. And then when you have those connections, you're able to like, okay, you need housing right now. Well, I know Vero. Vero is connected to the alley shelter, who's also connected to these other places. So with that personal connection and streamline, you can do your best to directly help people, but it's still that bottlenose effect of the money, the funding, the government. So diversifying our community solutions would be fantastic. And that is an open invitation to you guys know what sort of gaps and barriers are here. And just being creative with different solutions is incredibly helpful already. So that is what I have to add.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that in addition to dealing with houselessness in the community right now, we also need to be working on preventing it. Whether or not anyone supports the military buildup here, we need to be realistic that it is currently and will contribute to the lack of affordable and available housing for lower income and middle class families. We need to be advocating for things like mandated mixed income units where, you know, if there is a new apartment building being built, there has to be certain different levels of rents on those units. It can't all just be the same high price. We need to be mandating for limiting Airbnbs in different villages. How many can there be? There needs to be a cap on that. We need to be mandating for things like rental caps for local families. And these are not just like imaginary things. These are processes and solutions that have been implemented by municipalities in the United States and elsewhere. So this is doable in the community, but these are tools that are going to make Guam livable for lower income and even middle class families. Otherwise, it is becoming harder and harder for people just to feed their children and continue to have a safe place to stay and maintain their home, maintain their rent. And the future isn't looking too bright if we don't work together to really come up with some out of the box solutions.
Thank you so much. We have an audience question.
at the lower level, so that way you don't lose your income.
I'm sorry, can you explain that a little bit more?
So tiers of rent, right? You have the max amount, middle and the lower, right? How do you prevent abuse of the lower system? In a way that, because if there's a system where rent is lower for everybody, everybody's gonna want lower rent. So if everybody gets lower rent, how do you prevent abuse? Because if you can't prevent abuse, you're gonna lose your own income. Oh, wow.
Are you talking about income for landlords?
Everybody would want that. If anybody wants to pay less rent, really needs to think that you dollar on every dollar. How would you prevent?
I believe in a lot of cases, those programs are they're run through state-run programs in the US. Families do have to be enrolled in those programs to get that lower rent. But rather than being kind of sequestered in like Gura housing or a low-income unit, they are able to live in a unit with people from all different income backgrounds, which studies have shown that is better for community health, that is better for community relations.
So I think to answer that, I mean, it's an idea. Fleshing it out would be like a voucher system based on income. If you fall below a certain income bracket, you receive a voucher. That way, the landlord gets the full rent. The person just pays, the difference, right? So that's one way to address that. Because you know what, I would love to get SNAP, but I'd make too much money. So something like that. Okay.
Tori? That was a good question. I'd love to add to that. So I'm a very visual person. So as you have mentioned your question, I was already imagining like a housing level, like the first floor, you are respectfully the lowest income. And then as the floors get higher, then you are of a higher economic status. So I imagine that with these sort of policies, there would be a lot of different ways to keep confidentiality for different people. Of course, with mixed income housing units, there could just be the fear of like that family looks different, so they must be, on a lower housing level. But I think if you keep it confidential, and then with all the different sorts of people in the building, there wouldn't be any sort of discrimination. To an extent, if this became a normal thing, there shouldn't be any discrimination, because everyone would be exposed to different kinds of people with the confidentiality of their income.
Thank you so much. And so sorry about that. For the interest of time, we only have
I'd be open.
we
may be open to
10
talking
minutes.
after, if that's okay.
Okay, so in the interest of time, we'll move on to our last question. I kindly ask our panelists to keep responses short in the interest of time, so that we could make sure every panelist can speak their last thoughts or final thoughts. So for this last question, I would like to talk about pathways to empathy and support. In your view, how can community members, agencies, policy makers, and service providers build more empathy and inclusive support for people facing houselessness?
I'd like to go first, if that's okay. From what I've seen in the nonprofit or in the government or just other advocates in our community, there is a huge rate of burnout. If you don't know what burnout looks like, it just looks like you have a lot on your plate, or you need to go to sleep, but you are ignoring that, or you're drinking at least 3 or more cups of coffee when it's 5 p.m. and you really should not be doing that. Or it also looks like if you need the bathroom, but you're prioritizing sending out an email, you decide to hold it and then you forget about it. And then 3 hours pass and you still have not used the bathroom. You haven't left your desk, and the pile of the to-do is still there. Please remember that the work will always be here. There's only one of each and every one of you. Take care of yourselves. And there's also an idea that I advocate for. It's not an idea that I advocate for, but it's called consumerism. We might have heard of it. Consumerism just means that you are attaining well-being through buying material goods. If we could change the idea of well-being, shifting it from buying things into spending time in nature or spending time with friends, cooking the right food for yourself, going to sleep at a reasonable time, I'm hoping that that will foster empathy and that will foster the care that you need in order to help others. As Oprah said, she said, fill your cup first before you try to overflow to other people's cup. Thank you.
Yeah. Lindsay, would you like to go next?
I'll just briefly mention something that I think is really pertinent to this discussion, is the maintenance and creation of third spaces in the community. A third space, if you're not familiar with that term, is a place that's not your home and it's not a place where you're spending money. It would be a place like, say, a library, a park, a community center. And these are all really important places historically and now for people to gather and either, just relax, learn, socialize with each other. And at least in the US, these are places that are becoming harder and harder to find. And unfortunately, that trend kind of seems to be also happening somewhat here on Guam. And those places need to be maintained not just for our unhoused neighbors, but everyone in the community to come together, to get to know each other, and just also have a place to hang out where you don't have to spend money, where you can just relax and not have to worry about buying something.
Thank you. Curtis?
OMG. Okay, like what Lindsay said and Tori said, for the homeless community and the government, the government and nonprofit organization, we need a place where we can all sit down, like what Lindsay said. We need a place where we can all sit down individually and see what we can do, because with just us up here talking about the questions, answering the questions that Sister over here is asking, we need your ideas also too. We need your help to make it a better place to live and a better place to help others. Because not only us saying this and that, but we need your ideas also. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
So I think to create empathy, so first to we would ask people to step in the shoes of those who are experiencing uh, the issue or the problem. So I'm like trying to think, okay, so how can we ask the government or the community to step in the shoes of those who are experiencing homelessness? I think that's a task, and that's something that the coalition can help with. And it's things like this, right? For me to understand and to get empathy is to hear the stories of those people who are living in the situation. Yeah, so it's really just giving opportunities to the individuals to share their stories. And I'm hoping that when people hear the stories, they get to know the individuals and they get to hear the stories of resiliency and perseverance and like those. For me, those are the things that I find in the people that I work with, and hopefully, the more stories the community hears, the more they peel off the layer, right? That kind of, and there will be a step for the individuals to get up the ladder and be seen as a normal member of the community, right? And I'm putting that in quote, and I guess that's what we want them to be seen, right? And for us to help them to throw those stories out. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much.
So I'd like to preface my response with this first, that the Salvation Army is going to have their Thanksgiving feast for the homeless at the Chamorro Village next week, Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, for homeless and families in need, right? And after a 3-year absence. And what we've noticed is that a lot of empathy is kind of seasonal, right? You get a lot of donations during Thanksgiving, you get a lot of people giving to during Christmas because it's seasonal and, you know, it's the season. And how do you take that and extend it so that it's year long? One way to do that is that it's hard for people to concern themselves or have compassion or empathy towards people who are struggling when you're struggling yourselves, right? Gas is high and things like that, but understand that we're all one island community. And if you take this, if you take a view of how we're all kind of connected in one way or another, and what affects one community affects the other, then that can increase them people. All right. Yeah. The person on the street who's holding a sign or struggling or who with hunger, that's somebody that somebody else cares about. So take that. All right. But next week, Thursday.
Thank you so much. Do we have any audience questions? We could maybe take one. Yes. Would anyone like to take that question?
Okay, with my experience out here, being out here, yes. That's a good question. You should be Miss Guam World. Anyways, yes, with my experience out here, it is hard because when an individual needs the phone to call their caseworker or to call whoever they need to call, they go to individual and say, "Oh, can I borrow your phone?" "Oh, sorry, no, because of pandemic." It's what's causing this whole thing about using phones is the cause of the pandemic that was going on. Okay, before we used to have access to phones like at wind chills, like you said, library, Agana shopping center, anywhere in Agana, we had access. Now we don't because of the pandemic. So what we need to do as one community, nonprofit organization, government, and the homeless community, we need to find a solution. Where can we use the phone? Because even if you guys need the phone and you forgot your cell phone at home, I said, "Oh, jeez, I forgot my phone." Not only us homeless, but even you guys. We need to find a solution or an idea of how can we have a communication area where we can use the phone to call who we need to call. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to speak on this?
Yes, I'll just mention that one of our programs, it's a drop-in center. And now I just kind of realized that's it's a place that most of the individuals that we help kind of come in to use the phone, and most of the messages that are from their service providers come through our center because we have a phone there. So I guess we need phone in the community. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I know that At one point in time, there was a program that gave cell phones or to individuals, but I don't know if that's still in existence. That might be what you were talking about. So, as people who work in the human services field where funding is dependent on a lot of things, you kind of sometimes have to think outside the box. I know a couple of times when we were working with individuals who didn't have a phone, the mayor's office was kind enough to, take messages for them and things like that. So you just being in this field, you gotta think outside the box and utilize other resources when funding's not available. So.
Thank you so much. All right. So with that, we've come to the end of our panel on reframing houselessness, addressing identity-based barriers. Can we please give a round of applause to our panelists for sharing their insights? I want to give a huge thank you to the coalition, our panelists, and everyone here for your time and participation. And as we conclude, I want to acknowledge that for some of you, this may have been your first time hearing certain perspectives and stories today. For others, these topics may reflect challenges you face every single day. Regardless of where you are coming from, I hope everyone was able to take something new from this discussion, something that enhances your perspective on the complex factors contributing to houselessness on Guam. Above all, I hope this conversation highlights the critical role of empathy and compassion when addressing the myriad of systemic and individual factors that shape houselessness so that we could work together and work towards creating a more inclusive and supportive community for everyone. And so sorry, in the interest of time, I will now hand it back to our MC, but thank you again so much.
Thank you again so much, Jihei. Wonderful job moderating. Let's just give everybody one more round of applause. So we just have a couple more minutes before we go into lunch. So I did just kind of want to make a couple announcements. So when we do have lunch, lunch will be served just outside. You can go ahead and it's packaged lunch, so you guys can go ahead and grab your lunch. You can have lunch anywhere outside. In the next building over is going to be sort of where the breakout sessions are as well. So you can be in the atrium or you can go to those actual classrooms already. But there just is no eating inside of this lecture hall. Additionally, for those of you who are out here that were able to come out today, those who are unhoused, thank you to Micronesian Legal Service. And then also to OHAP for providing some goodie bags. So they are out in the front. So please make sure you guys take a bag today. And then after lunch, we're going to go straight into our breakout or our training sessions. And so lunch will start right when I'm done talking. And then we're asking that around 1:15, you make your way to the different trainings. And I'll kind of go over what the different trainings we have are. So here in the lecture hall, we'll be having the curbing the criminalization of homelessness and legislation affecting Guam's unhoused. And so during that training session, you can learn about the laws and legislation that affect our unhoused population. We will have Stephen Hattori, the executive director from PDSC, and I believe Lawrence Osborne with Department of Parks and Recs, who will be discussing camping, panhandling, and squatting laws on Guam. They will also discuss the impact that incarceration and recurring arrests have on an individual experiencing homelessness and how that can exacerbate crisis and trauma that can reinforce hopelessness. In the next building over in room 104, we'll have the landlord-tenant relationship and laws for renters and landlords. During this session, you can learn about tenant and landlord rights and responsibilities, including eviction proceedings, tenant protections, and what should be included in a lease. And that will be with Heidi Simpson from Micronesian Legal Services, and then also Carol Hingle Sanchez from Public Defender. Our third training option, so you guys can only choose one option today, is going to be the opioid response training. And so opioid related overdoses have been on the rise in the US as fentanyl access has increased. And as it is found in more drugs. So the island is seeing an increase in opioid related deaths and opioid misuse. And they're going to be talking about what are opioids, the signs and symptoms of opioid overdose, and how to properly respond to an overdose using over-the-counter naloxone. So that will be thanks to our partners at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. That will be with Miss Audrey Lynn Beneventi and Kevin Demaala. And then our last one is our HMIS refresher training and timely data reporting. So we are asking that one participant from each HMIS and user organization attend this. And this session is really geared towards our Guam Homeless Coalition members who want to improve their understanding of the HMIS system, see how timely data affects the COC, and refresh on how to use HMIS as an effective tool in connecting individuals to needs, increasing the flow through for those who are experiencing housing instability. So again, they have those 4 sessions. I will pop up the agenda I'll pop up the agenda again right after this. And so it'll just be on screen and it'll have those different rooms. And so that will also be in 102. All of the doors will have signs on them. And again, you can eat inside of those classrooms. So if you wanted to kind of eat in there, you are welcome to, or you can eat outside. After the trainings, which were going to be about an hour long, you'll have a 15-minute break, and then we'll go straight into our committee meetings. So we will have the data committee will be in the same room that HMIS training is in. The housing committee will be meeting in the same room as the landlord tenant session is going to be in. That's going to be 104. And then the communication and fundraising committees will meet here in the lecture hall. I know that was a lot of information. Don't worry. Guam Homeless Coalition committee planning members will be around to kind of help facilitate things. And again, I'll put the agenda back on the board for everyone. Is Pastor Ron here? Okay, I think he stepped out. He left. Okay. Can I call up Jansen to to bless the food for us? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's even wearing the food shirt.
Go ahead and bow our heads and pray. Bless us, O Lord. Thank you.
Van Boca. Okay. Thank you all so much. And again, I'll have the agenda up here if you guys have any questions about the next sessions. And thank you again to our wonderful panelists for being here.
Mm-hmm.